Hi, welcome to this next installment of this mini podcast series that I'm doing called the 12 Principles of Permaculture, where we review every single one of David Holmgren's 12 Principles of Permaculture, and we talk about how we interpret them and also how we implement them here on Axe and Root Homestead. So today we're going to touch on the next principle. I believe this is number 3, and it is all about obtaining a yield or obtaining a harvest. So I think in the traditional sense, right, we think of, okay, if we're obtaining a yield or a harvest, it means like, how much are we pulling out of the garden at any given time? Are we getting a bushel full of apples or a bushel of tomatoes? But I think for us, it goes beyond that. And it's not just the tangible raising, plants for produce, raising animals, if you will, for meat. It's not just about growing flowers so that you can obviously make income, which is important too. I think what it comes back to for us is that each contributor to the homestead, be it a plant or an animal, has multiple functions, and we can reap the benefits or reap the harvest in a myriad of ways. So for example, with the horses, they pull for me, I ride them, they're great companions, but they also give us manure. And in a permaculture viewpoint, that's absolutely a harvest because it's something that you can put to use to better the environment of your homestead. So composted manure is something we use all of the time in every single growing space here. And then I think if you're looking at trees, orchard trees to be specific, you would say, I get apples or pears from this tree. But in reality, you get so much more than that, right? You get shade and you can look it up, different orchard trees offer different BTUs of cooling power to shade out animals, shade out their structures, even shade out your home. But then also, as they die or as they need to be pruned, you're gaining branches, twigs, and even massive logs near the end of their life cycle. And so that's a harvest. Native grasses are something that we value here because they help to feed our animals. I look at that as a yield. So I think it goes beyond just sort of the traditional, what am I taking out of my garden in a harvest basket? So in trying to find the value, and I know sometimes that's a little bit hard to quantify, especially when you're talking about like trees and compost, but when you're trying to find the value in every plant and every animal, it's pretty cool and quite honestly a little bit addictive because now it changes the mindset. And I'm looking at weeds and I'm thinking, what at one point this was just a weed, but really so many quote unquote weeds are actually just medicinal native plants. And it really changes the entire outlook rather than just going for the instant gratification piece of I'm getting a tomato, I'm cutting back some basil, I'm getting a head of lettuce. It's now become more grand and more long-term in thinking. And really, plants especially can give you harvests of different types for years and years to come, especially when you think of it in terms of what they're giving to the soil. That is another type of yield. So that's our interpretation of it here on Axe and Root Homestead. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back soon with our mini podcast on principle number 4.